You may want to stay seated for a second. Some really messed up stuff happened, and there were a lot of fatalities.
Okay, tell me about these fatalities.
Fatalities.
Well, here it is. Mortal Kombat, the reboot. I figured I'd give it a little time so you guys could see it, and then I'd do a spoiler discussion. And here we are. So spoilers. I was a kid of the 90s, so naturally I have a nostalgic love for the 1995 Mortal Kombat movie. It's ridiculous and silly and awesome.
The fate of billions will depend upon you.
Do I like this new version better than the 1995 version? No. No way, Jose. It's very hard to compete with nostalgia, and this new movie just doesn't quite compare. Overall, though, I did enjoy this movie. I had a good time watching it, and when it comes to my base level of expectations, I got exactly what I wanted. Great fight scenes and brutal fatalities. So before I start nitpicking this thing, just remember I did enjoy it. It's a silly, dumb time with some great violence that I very much enjoyed, and some of the characters surpassed my expectations. Speaking of characters, let's get into that. Mr. Cole Young. Somebody tell me, was this guy actually in the video games? I don't know this dude, and he's the main character of the movie, who has a wife and a kid, and who used to be a good fighter, but now he sucks? He gets his ass kicked, like, the whole movie, except for when he gets his magic Okana, and then he gets this random armor, defeats Goro, and pretty much goes back to being worthless. Basically, he's just used as a plot device to bring back Scorpion by having him hold Scorpion's weapon that Scorpion died from and having him bleed on it, and somehow that brings Scorpion back. The descendant of Scorpion had to bleed on a weapon to pull Scorpion out of hell. Alright. What are these rules? Like, that's the rule for Scorpion, but Raiden can teleport anyone to anywhere at any time? I just think that Cole Young was kind of an unnecessary character. They could have covered their bases differently and it would have been better. However, Liu Kang, Jax, and Kung Lao were all legit. I would have really preferred to get more screen time for Liu Kang and Kung Lao. Personally, I care more about their history than anything that they showed me from Cole Young. And then there's Sonya Blade. Unfortunately, she was like the worst character in the movie. Her acting wasn't great. And all the characters shit on her character like the whole movie until she got her Okana powers. Everyone's picking on Sonya like the whole time. Even the guys that don't mean to be picking on her are fucking picking on her. All that aside, I think the worst part about her character is that she was mostly used to talk exposition at us. I'm gonna talk more on that later, but yeah, Sonya Blade, not my favorite. My favorite was motherfucking Kano. Talk about an amazing casting choice. That dude was hilarious. He was crude and vulgar, and I laughed the whole time he was on screen.
Where is it?
You got a pen? You want to write this down? Get fucked.
If they went with that same actor, I'd totally be down for a Kano dark comedy. Is that just me? Tell me I'm not the only one. The villains were like your stereotypical disposable villains. The only one they really fleshed out was Subzero. And in the beginning, he was great. Really cool powers that he used in really cool, evil ways. And the rest of the movie is just kind of there, fighting people and stirring shit up until Scorpion shows up. And that brings me to the Sub-Zero-Scorpion conflict that apparently started like hundreds of years ago. The first 10 minutes of this movie is fantastic. It's fantastic. Way above my expectations. And I wish that they rode that momentum with these two characters throughout the rest of the movie. But they didn't. Just the beginning and the end. I think it would have been better to make this conflict the core of the movie and build the story around that. Just take that history and the hatred that these two characters have for each other and dive into it. Why is Sub-Zero going after Scorpion? How did they know each other? Oh, Scorpion was in hell that whole time after he died and he learned how to control hellfire? I sure would have liked to see that. I think there's a great Mortal Kombat movie there that's based around that initial conflict that we saw in the beginning. But instead, we got something else. That brings me to the weak-ass story that this movie has. It brings up too many questions. So let me get this straight. Shang Tsung wants to win the 10th Mortal Kombat tournament because they've won the previous 9 Mortal Kombat tournaments. And if they win the 10th, then they get to invade the Earth realm. He wants to kill off all of Earth's champions so he can get an easy win for the 10th tournament. If that's the case, then why do they have them fighting one-on-one tournament style anyway? I know that Cole Young tries to pull like the we'll make them fight tournament style our way, but they were already fighting one-on-one before that. That was always how the movie was going to play out. Maybe they realized that that was kind of stupid while they were making the movie. Crazy idea. How about we just scrap the cheating shit and actually hold a Mortal Kombat tournament? I just don't understand the rules and how this movie does everything. If they did a better job at setting things up and just making it a dumber, straightforward movie, then I wouldn't have these questions. How does Raiden gather and choose the Earth's champions? Why is it done so close to the tournament? Shouldn't they do just like a bit more due diligence and find everybody and train them like years in advance so they have a chance? I'm starting to understand why Earthrealm has lost the past 9 tournaments. Because they're fucking lazy. And we don't even get to see the tournament in this movie. The champions wiped out all the bad guys. So essentially, they did exactly what Shang Tsung was looking to do in the first place. Are there repercussions for that? By taking away that pressure of the 10th tournament and setting this movie before the 10th tournament, they remove that tension of a time constraint. That added pressure and tension could have made for a better viewing experience on top of the sweet fights. Like 20 minutes into the movie, there's a pretty rough exposition dump. Sonya Blade's like, I've been studying this for years, and then proceeds to tell us about Mortal Kombat for the next like 5 minutes. And then after she's done, she's like, there's still so much more to learn. Hold up, you've been studying this shit for 7 years, and that is all you know? You've made a collage on your wall, and that's all you know? Did you spend your 7 years just cutting up newspapers and magazines to make that collage? Oh man, yeah, it could have been done better. Could have been done a lot better. Here's a random catch that I had. When they land in the desert, looking to go to the temple, and Sonya and Kano have their first scuffle, it is broad daylight. And then out of nowhere, Liu Kang shows up, and he's walking towards our group, and the group's looking at him, and it's broad daylight, and cuts back to Liu Kang, and it's set with a sunset behind him. They completely compromised the integrity of the scene so they could get a cool shot of Liu Kang against a sunset. Don't get me wrong, it looked great, but where did the day go? I did notice that this movie does have CG blood, but for once, it looks pretty good. Honestly, probably the best looking CG blood I've seen in a movie. I wasn't mad at it. In case you were wondering, hey Maguff, what's your favorite fatality?
Fatalities.
My favorite fatality is when Kung Lao takes his spinny hat and he throws it into the ground and he spins it like a saw, and then he proceeds to take Bat Lady and cut her in half with it. It was fucking brutal, and I loved it. The Mortal Kombat song. I was getting a little worried that they weren't going to hit us with it. But as the movie ended and the credits were going, they did a nice techno build up to the Mortal Kombat! And after that, they did a remix of the old school song, and that was good enough for me. I'm not trying to totally tear this movie apart, not trying to diss on it too much. I'm just saying it could have been better. The fight scenes and the choreography and the kills, that was all great. It's just the shit in between that bothered me, you know? I hear there's gonna be some sequels now, so maybe just do a few things that I recommended in this video. Give me some of that Subzero Scorpion history, you know? Maybe make that its own movie. I'd be so into that. However they do those sequels, I'll still watch them because I like myself a bloody good time. Just like this movie was. It was a bloody good time. Yeah. So, maybe check it out if you haven't seen it yet. Okay? See ya. Subscribe! Can somebody please get this lady some chapstick?